Let's go to our panel now. I'm joined from Washington, D.C. by David Inserra. He's a policy analyst with the Heritage Foundation, specializing in homeland security issues and immigration policy. And in Tampa, Florida, we have Ahmed Bedier. He's the president of United Voices for America, an organization that tries to increase the participation of minorities in politics. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. David, let me begin with you. 1,475 children. The authorities lost track of them. Is that a scandal?
You know, I think that this is an unfortunate reality of the system that we have right now. There are these loopholes that the Trump administration is talking about. This is one of those loopholes. The government is required right now to release these children into the United States. These are unaccompanied children. They did not have their parents when they arrived at the border. And then they have to put them in the hands of sponsors. And I think that system is a system that can be abused, but I also think it's a system that can lead to more illegal immigration. And that's why the Trump administration wants to end this program. They want to end this loophole.
Okay, well, it is very hard to identify a lot of the facts amid the social media firestorm, especially over the past few days. There are two separate issues here that do overlap a little bit. So you have these almost 1,500 kids who are kind of lost to the system, or the system can't follow up on them. And then you have President Trump's administration vowing to separate migrant parents from their children if they cross the U.S. border illegally, and they have. So we're going to get to the separation in a moment. Let me stick to the 1,500 for the moment and go to Ahmed Bedier. Ahmed, 1,475 kids. We're hearing from David that this is a systemic problem and it's a legacy issue. It's been passed on from the Obama administration. Is that how you see it?
Well, it's definitely a failure. I mean, it's unfortunate that in the United States of America that we still don't have a real comprehensive immigration policy that, in a way, encourages this kind of behavior. When you have an anti-immigration administration that campaigned against immigrants, that called some of these immigrants animals, that in the past called them rapists and thugs, continues to use this issue of immigration and migrants as a political football. They know that it works for their base, and they're using it to score political points. It's not necessarily prioritizing these children, and they're trying to blame the Democrats for it. But the reality is that they're continuing to use this immigration issue and risking the lives of children to score political points and win elections in November.
David, is that what this administration is doing?
No, I would disagree with that. The reality is that they're required by U.S. law to release these children. Do I think that is a really unfortunate situation? I do. I don't think that releasing these children into the United States, into the hands of sponsors, I don't think it's entirely safe. I think it can be abused, and these children could end up in the wrong hands. I think that's horrible. And I also think from the Trump administration's perspective, if you're going to be releasing illegal immigrants into the United States, and then often you're reuniting them with other illegal immigrant family members in the United States, that it's no surprise that sometimes these people go missing, that sometimes these people do not want to be found because they are fleeing from the authorities. So this is, in many ways, this is a broken system, and the Trump administration wants to fix it.
Ahmed?
It's a broken system that they don't want to fix because it continues to pay over and over and over. As long as there's an immigration problem, then they can continue to use it and point the finger at Democrats and say, that's why you have to put us in office, so we can keep you safe from these animals that are coming from south of the border. And this is the problem. There's nothing illegal about children. These are children. There's nothing legal about them. The fact that they end up being at the border for some reason, not to any fault of their own, it doesn't make them illegal. There is a mandate that, the mandate is that is not to lose track of them or to lose the children. The mandate says basically that the government cannot put children in prisons. Surely they could find a better way. The priority for the Trump administration continues to be to build the wall. And in a way, they're using this issue as political blackmail, saying to the Democrats and blaming the Democrats publicly and simply saying, if you want to fix all of this, then fund Trump's wall and all of this can go away. And they use it for the DACA issue, again, for children that came into the country, as minors and being allowed to stay here. And they continue to use immigration, especially the lives of children, as political collateral and blackmail to force the Democrats to fund building this fantasy wall that supposedly the Mexicans are going to pay for it. And Trump, again, said this last night, and the president of Mexico replying, no, it's never going to happen.
Right. David, to add to that, and I know you're shaking your head in disagreement, let me read out President Trump's tweet regarding this issue. He said, put pressure on the Democrats to end the horrible law that separates children from their parents. There's a spelling mistake there. Their parents, once they cross the border into the U.S. catch and release, lottery and chain must also go with it, and we must continue building the wall. Democrats are protecting MS-13 thugs. Now, David, that is false, right? I mean, his policy is zero tolerance, as explained by the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. If you come with your kids, we'll separate you. That's not policy that came from the Obama administration. So he's mixing some of these issues. He's talking about MS-13 and he's talking about building a wall. Doesn't that make Ahmed's point for him, that Trump is taking this issue, extrapolating out of it what he wants to, and using it for political capital, even if it's false?
Well, I would say that there's multiple different loopholes, and I would agree that I think there is some confusion here about which ones we're talking about. But in this next one that you've talked about, this tweet that you've mentioned, this is the fact that when we have, there's another requirement that we have to release children from jails after we can't hold them for more than 20 days. And the problem is that if you have families coming over, families that are all together with their children, what do you do when you have to release the child after 20 days? But you don't want to release the families, because if you release the entire family, we know that 40% of people who we release will not show up at their immigration court hearing. And so that's an unacceptably high amount of people to lose track of, and we need to reject that, and we need to make sure that we have a system in place that is better serving both our legal immigrants. It's better process for the people who are coming here, but it's also better for the immigration system as a whole. It's better for making sure that we have our laws that are faithfully enforced.
Ahmed, all David wants is for there to be law and order, no more, no less. Do you accept that from the man?
Sure, law and order that prioritizes family and takes care of children, and recognize that America is a land of immigrants, and that immigrants make America better, and that there's room for a lot of people. We should have a comprehensive immigration policy that prioritizes families, and not an anti-immigration policy that's rooted in some sort of nationalism that plays up to this, to the right and to the base of Trump. And I think, unfortunately, because of the way our political system is, the Trump administration continues to feed into that rhetoric, which, again, will keep our immigration system broken in hopes of somehow building this fantasy wall that will never be built.
When you hear, David, that 8 out of those kids that they were talking about at the Senate Homeland Security Subcommittee, 8 of them had been trafficked and were forced to work on an egg farm, what does that tell you?
Yeah, it tells me that the system is broken, and that we need to end the loopholes that are in place that allow it to happen. I think there's a better way here to handle these families and these children who are picked up at the border. I think if we're going to have people claiming asylum, as is often the case with the people we're talking about here, I think we should have them apply for asylum at our U.S. embassies in Mexico before they arrive here. They don't have to go as far, right? They don't have to make it to the U.S. border. They can have their cases adjudicated in Mexico before they get to the United States. And then if they are rejected, then we don't have to have this whole problem of, well, did we lose them, or what's going on with them? I think that's a better system for both the immigrants, and it's also better for making sure that we have proper, rule of law in how we carry out our immigration system.
Think about this for a second, right? Especially if you're a kid, if you're fleeing a drug cartel, you're from Honduras and you're fleeing a drug cartel and you're 15 years old, are you genuinely going to take your chances going to the U.S. Embassy in maybe Mexico City? Is that a possibility?
It's certainly safer. They don't have to go as far. Right now, they're taking trains that are going incredibly fast. They're being trafficked by smugglers who are often working for the drug cartels. And so, why would we put them in those people's hands when we could say, why don't you have your case adjudicated at the border or even before you get to the border? That way, we aren't losing you in the United States. I think that is the worst case scenario for everyone involved.
Ahmed?
Probably the worst case scenario for some of these children is to remain where they are, where they can end up being child soldiers and risking their own lives. If they just have to show up at the local embassy, there's already a process for that. It's called the immigration process. You go apply for a visa. Asylum everywhere works that, once you get somewhere, once you enter the country, then you can apply for asylum because now you're in some sort of safe area. So there has to be a responsible way. We're not talking about millions of children here. We're talking about a few thousands, and I think they can be taken care of in a responsible way, and stop using this on both the right and the left as some sort of political football to score electoral points. And this is the problem with this whole debate.
Right.
I don't think on either side that they're really interested in resolving it.
Yeah, this is interesting because you say both the left and the right. Do you feel that there's been this moment on the left where they realized, oh my word, this has been going on under Obama as well, and we didn't care about it until a guy we hated came into office? Because everything that's coming out now from the ACLU, for example, with all the statistics from 2008, or rather 2009 and 2014, all under the Obama administration, horrible news for migrants, for separation of families, for minors and so forth. What, was the left just completely naive? Did they think that everything was perfect under Obama?
Well, they weren't as critical, but to his credit, President Obama and the Democrats tried several times to do immigration reform, but the party of no. The Republicans said no to everything, especially after they took over the House and the Senate, and they would not allow anything dealing with immigration to move forward. Just about everything that Obama was trying to suggest was blocked, including immigration reform. But the Obama administration did promise to do immigration reform, but they didn't do it early on. They prioritized Obamacare, and that's now in danger. Basically, Obama's legacy in general is in danger of being undone piece by piece, and it seems like this president and administration and the Republicans, that's their ultimate goal, is everything that Obama has done to try to undo right now, and that's what they're doing. But to be fair, the immigration system has been broken for quite some time, under both parties, and they only remember the immigrants once it's time for elections. And right now we're in election season, and both sides want to get that immigrant vote, especially the Hispanic vote, and they don't want to seem to appear to be against the Hispanic community per se, and that's why they're playing this blame game. But the reality is, it's the Trump administration that's been running on the anti-immigration message with this zero tolerance and threatening to separate families, and separating families in reality. Families are being deported, the parents and the children are left behind, and threatening that parents that show up with children at the border, they'll be separated. And that's what's happening. It's already been going on.
David, the Obama administration and the Democrats in general had better intentions when it comes to immigration, but they were scuppered by a Republican-led Congress. What do you think of that?
I think that it comes down to what we mean when we say immigration reform. This is a term which is used a lot, but what does it actually mean? I think when we talk about immigration reform, there's different things that we could be talking about. I'm actually very pro-immigration reform, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm pro-amnesty. And I think that's where the dividing line is. I would love to have a conversation about our legal immigration system. Can we make it a system that is more merit-based? Can we talk about how we can have better enforcement of our laws? Can we have better border security? But can we do all those other pieces and not do the amnesty? The amnesty is the thing which is we said that the Obama administration tried multiple times to do immigration reform. Well, they wanted amnesty. They wouldn't even try anything without it. So I would say, why don't we work on those things like legal immigration, which I think there's a lot of room to work on. Why don't we work on that issue? Why don't we serve the legal immigrants who want to come to the United States first? And I think we can have a genuine conversation about that, and we don't have to be anti-immigrant or whatnot. We can be pro-immigration and have a conversation about what the best system looks like. And I think that's what a lot of conservatives want to talk about.
Although, David, when you hear the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, say clearly, if you don't want your child separated, then don't bring them across the border illegally, doesn't sound very humane, does it?
Well, like I said, this is a situation where they're trying to deter more illegal immigration. If the policy of the United States government is, so long as you come across the border with a child, we'll let you go, well, then that's the way that most people are going to come across the border, is with children, not even their children necessarily. And that's, I think, incredibly dangerous. I don't want to incentivize more people to come across the border with children in tow, because that's more dangerous for the child, and I think it's just in general more dangerous for the family, because these people are not just coming across the border, they're coming across the border, they've usually been smuggled or allowed to come to the border because they were allowed to do so in the hands of drug smugglers or these other organizations that are operating in these areas.
Okay, so you're saying it's not great, but it's a deterrent. But if we say, well, it's happened to 700 kids already since October, so it's clearly not working as a deterrent. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's why I think there's a better path forward. I think rather than releasing everyone into the United States or breaking up the families, I would say, why don't we have a system where we do this, like I said, can we more quickly handle these cases at the border? Can we more quickly handle these cases even before they get to the border, at the embassy, for example, or the consulate? I think those are better solutions that are better for the immigrants involved, and it's better for the fidelity of the U.S. immigration system.
Okay, gentlemen, lots of moving parts to this, a lot of confusion, especially on social media. I'm glad we could unpack some of it. David Inserra and Ahmed Bedier, I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers.